seems like almost every day that I'm talking to somebody who's just started Retatrutide, they climbed that dose exactly the way that they were told to do or that they expected from prior GLP-1 experience. They lost weight and now watching it come back on. You see, almost every one of them asks me some of those same questions. What am I doing wrong? And the answer is nothing. You did exactly what the protocol says to do. That's the problem. You see, the protocol that you followed was built around a question that you were never asking. And answering it correctly is what sets you up for the regain. So let me show you what's starting the climbing. I'm Dr. Jones, DC, and I coach thousands of patients on GLP-1 meds and probably hundreds on Retatrutide at this point. And I'm not here to talk you out of any of them. They're the most powerful tools that we've ever had for this weight loss game. But what we teach is how to keep the weight off once it's gone, on a fraction of the dose or off entirely. And I care about this more than most because I spent the better part of a decade losing and regaining the same 50 pounds every single year after I lost the initial 100 pounds. Now I work alongside our medical team helping people get it right the first time so that you don't have to freaking yo-yo. So let's start with the ladder itself because you probably have already gotten it written down. 2 milligrams for 4 weeks, then 4, and then 8, and then do I go to 12? As tolerated, right? You climb until the weight loss comes off or the side effects stop you. But here's what I need you to understand about that schedule. It isn't that it's wrong. It does exactly what it was designed to do. And the higher you climb, the more weight comes off. That part is real. I'm not gonna stand here and tell you that the dose doesn't matter, but ask yourself what question that dose ladder was built to answer. You see, if you ask me, it was built to find out how much weight comes off of a person who takes this drug for 48 weeks straight, right? That's what the trials did. That's how long they ran it. That's the finish line that it was built around. Now, is that your finish line? Because no published trial has followed you after you stop. That study doesn't exist yet. The whole map ends at the moment you were planning to walk away. So you followed a set of directions to a place that you never wanted to go. And then the weight came back and you thought it was your fault. It wasn't. I do want you to take some responsibility here, but there's a thermostat in your head. And the part of your brain, the hypothalamus, and it decides what your body is supposed to weigh. Then it defends that number like a room defends its temperature, right? The thermostat. Insulin resistance is one of the main things that sets your thermostat high. Dieting is like bringing a portable AC unit into the room. You'll get cold while it's running, but that thermostat, it never moved, it never turned off. So it detects the change and it gets the room back on while the AC is still on. The medication is a very, very good AC unit. And climbing that ladder doesn't touch your thermostat, not much. So if the dosing ladder isn't the plan, then what number do you actually start on? Lower than you're probably expecting. See, most of the people that I coach, first of all, we start them off at 1 milligram. And I've watched some people get everything they needed out of that half dose. They do great. And I already know what some of you are thinking because my patients say it to me all the time, hold on, but 2 milligrams was the bottom rung of a ladder that was built for climbing. It was never designed to be a place that you stay as low as you possibly can. It's a step that you pass through on the way up. We're not trying to go up that high. So here's what's underneath that. Ask most people what an effective dose feels like and they'll tell you, I'm not hungry anymore. And if they're still thinking about food, the dose is too low, so let's climb. See, that's the part that I push back on. Effective doesn't mean zero hunger. Effective to me means the food noise, it gets quiet enough that you can actually build something. That's the whole bar. That's it. Zero hunger isn't the win condition. Zero hunger is how you stop eating enough to build anything at all. And then you've spent the window and you've got nothing for it. So think about a stereo. Your receptors are the speakers. The medication is the volume knob. And everybody's trying to solve this by cranking up the volume. Better speakers mean you need less volume to hear the song just fine. Now, everything I'm about to show you is about better speakers. So the number that you start on isn't a floor that you climb up from. It's a ceiling that you're trying to get under on a plan that's working. The dose trends down. If it only never goes up, something else in the system is broken and the dose isn't what's broken. Now, I can't give you your number. Nobody on YouTube can, and anybody who does so is simply guessing. But what I can tell you, what your lowest effective dose is depends on your labs, your history, how insulin resistant you actually are, how bad's that food chatter. That's a conversation with you and a prescriber. That's not me dodging you, that's the honest answer. And if you're new here, this channel is where I break down how these medications actually work and how people get off them without losing what they built. So hit that subscribe button because I'm gonna walk through the rest of it here shortly. Whatever your starting number turns out to be, it only does anything if you use the quiet that it buys surprise you. Quiet enough to build what? This. And this is the part that decides everything. That quiet that you get on the medication is a window. The first 90 days is when it's widest, and it does not stay open forever. Everybody treats those 90 days like the reward. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy that I'm here. But they're not the reward, I'm sorry to say. They're the only time that you can get to do the actual work while it's easy. And the work, it's insulin resistance, baby. That's what we need to do. Not your insulin after dinner, insulin across your entire day. Because while insulin levels are elevated, your body is parked into fat storage mode. It won't hand over much fat, and it fights you every time you try to run a calorie deficit. You'll still lose weight because your body will pump out stress hormones, but that won't last. That's why you know people who eat almost nothing and they still can't make that calorie deficit stick. Now here's the part that almost nobody accounts for. You ask somebody what they ate today and they'll tell you 3 meals, but that's not what their day looked like. There was 4 crackers off of a kid's plate, a handful of trail mix at 3, 2 bites of something on the way past the counter, a latte here. None of that felt like eating. All of it moved insulin. I call that the bite trap. It's the single most common thing that I see wrecking a good protocol. It's not the meals. It's everything in between the meals that never registered as food. Every one of those closes a window that you were supposed to be burning fat in. So what do? Protein first, every meal. Your target should be simple. 1 gram per pound of your target body weight, not what you weigh now. And that's real food on a plate, on purpose. And then we open the windows back up with fasting. Therapeutic fasting, longer stretches where insulin can actually come down as much as it possibly can because you're not eating anything to bring it back up. So it works on getting closer to all the way down and staying down. Now, I know exactly what you just thought because a lot of people think it when I say this. You want me to fast on a drug that already killed my appetite? That's fair. And this is where people get hurt. So listen. And by the way, I made an entire video about specifically introducing therapeutic fasting to your GLP-1 journey. So I'll leave a link to that video in the description for you to check it out. Fasting isn't the hard part. The refeed after the fast, that's how you actually make therapeutic fasting work. That's the hard part. You fast hard and then you eat full. Protein, real calories, all the way back up. That balance is the whole protocol. You skip it, you're not fasting. You're starving on a medication that's making starving easy. That's how people flame out eventually and decide that they aren't candidates for this. Now, if you just heard fast and then refeed properly and you thought, okay, but how much protein? How many calories? How soon? How long should the fast be? How do I time my dosing around the fasting? All those sort of questions. Those don't have generic answers. They depend on you. And that's what a free discovery call with our team is for. You'll get to speak with one of our patient educators about where you're starting from. You'll get a real feel for what working with our team actually looks like. Just text the number on the screen or grab that link in the description if you want to explore that. But first, the weight is coming off fast now, and something else is coming off with it. And that thing is muscle. So I want to be careful here because this is the one that sneaks up on people. The scale is moving, clothes are fitting. Everything looks like it's working. And underneath that, you can be dismantling the exact tissue that decides whether any of this holds. And you won't see it until you're standing in the mirror at your goal weight, wondering why you look soft, skinny fat. You heard that term, a smaller version of yourself, but more or less the same body, right? The same body composition. Now, here's why this bites harder on Retatrutide than anything else. Reta hits a third receptor that the others don't, and that's glucagon. And the glucagon arm changes the math. You run warmer. Your body pulls fat out of storage more aggressively, and you can burn more than you'd expect for what you're doing, more than the number that you'd calculate for yourself. That's the trade. More power, more that can go wrong without somebody watching. It's not a warning. It's just honesty. A bigger engine needs a better driver. So put those two things together. A drug that's suppressing your appetite on top of a burn that you didn't account for. And that gap is where I see people crash. Under eating into a calorie deficit that they never chose to intentionally, losing weight fast and losing muscle right along with it. I'm sorry to tell you, Retatrutide does not provide some sort of special muscle protection. And I'd argue, I bet you when the data actually compares these two things, Reta is going to be the same as tirzepatide. Glucagon does burn more fat, but it does not inherently protect your muscles anything more than tirzepatide would in the same scenario. We're going to talk about what protects your muscle here, but I just want to make that clear, and I'm sorry to say. And I'll admit, I was one of the ones that thought mechanistically early on, Retatrutide would protect more muscle, right? That would make sense when you think about it, because you're going into a state of ketosis a little bit more. But after seeing now, at this point, so many patients on it, it really just comes down to the basics. And that answer is training, not cardio. Cardio is optional. I don't have a problem with it. But resistance training, proper resistance training, is the one thing in this protocol that I won't negotiate on. 3 full body sessions a week, 45 minutes, real compound movements, squats, presses, rows. And then you add a little weight or a little rep every time you go. That's the whole prescription. That's called progressive overload. And lifting goes on eating days, by the way. On a long fast, you do nothing or you walk. Maybe you stretch, maybe some mobility, but you don't chase a personal record. The fast and the training, they take turns. Now, here's why I'm stubborn about this, okay? Muscle isn't decoration, it isn't aesthetics. It is metabolically active tissue. It burns calories at rest, doing nothing while you sleep. You build more of it and your body needs more food just to exist. Talk about a nice tool for maintenance in the future. And every pound of it is somewhere for glucose, blood sugar, to go that isn't in your bloodstream. More muscle means more glucose disposal, which means less insulin demand, and less insulin demand means you can't get insulin resistant again in the future when you're insulin sensitive. So now we're all the way back at that thermostat in your head thing that we talked about earlier. For the first time, you're giving it an actual reason to come down. Now I'll go further than that. If you ask me what actually separates the people who keep it off from the people who watch it come back, it isn't completely willpower, although there's some willpower. And honestly, it isn't even the medication. It's how much muscle they were carrying when they stopped. That's the closest thing to a secret in this entire protocol. And it's sitting right out in the open where nobody bothers to pick it up. So understand what you're actually doing when you lift on one of these. You're not doing it so the mirror cooperates. You're building the machine that lets you put the medication down. And 30 minutes, 3 times a week, that's the version that I'd hand anybody. Believe it or not, when it's done correctly, there are even ways to get your workouts down to 10 minutes, which I did not believe either, but here we are. And while we're here, that's what I want to talk about next, and that's the X3 bar. Only after digging into the research for months and just being completely blown away about what I found, and of course reading the book by Dr. John Jaquise, who actually created the X3 bar, I literally have been full into the X3 bar. I stopped doing the gym, I maintain all my muscle mass, and I save so much time by using the X3 bar. So if you want to pick one up, I'll leave a link in the description. Now I'll show you exactly how I use it and why I was wrong about it at the end. But first, understand the muscle that you keep is the thing that you leave on. That's not a fitness goal, that's the exit. So let me get back to where we started. You climbed the ladder, you lost the weight, it came back, and you thought that was about you. See, here's what I actually want you to take out of this. You were never just starting a medication. You were starting an exit. You just didn't know it yet. And nobody told you that day one is where the exit gets decided. Because look at what you've built. Insulin down across the whole day instead of up for most of it. Muscle on your frame, pulling blood sugar, pulling glucose out of your blood, a body that can switch between burning food and burning you up. That's metabolic flexibility. It's the thing that you've been missing this entire time. And a thermostat that finally, for the first time, has a reason to come down. That's metabolic independence. And I want to be precise about what it means because people oversell this, and I'm not going to. It does not mean that you'll never touch this medication again. For some people, if your insulin resistance was mild to start, yeah, there's a chance you come completely off. For most of the patients that I work with, it looks like a microdose of GLP-1s. 1 or 2 small doses a month, or maybe just a microdose every week, just enough support, nowhere near enough to run your life. And that is not dependence. Somebody who cleaned up everything and still takes a low dose blood pressure medication isn't dependent on it. They're managing something intelligently. It's the same concept here. So before we wrap, think honestly about this one because it's the whole video. What are you actually building towards on day number 1? Okay, so the X3 and why I was wrong about it. You see, I came up under a barbell. Heavy weight, low reps, and that stuff works. So somebody hands me a bar with bands on it, and I figured it was a toy, a novelty thing, right? Boy, oh boy, I was wrong twice. The tension climbs up as you move. It's heaviest right where you're strongest, so there's no coasting through the top of the rep the way that the barbell or dumbbells let you. The set stays honest, and I can take a set all the way to failure standing in my own house. No spotter, no rack, no pressure on my joints, no danger. So I actually go there now instead of leaving one in the tank. Then the part that I really didn't see coming. It's low impact and it's functional. I'm not stacking a loaded barbell on my spine to get to failure, which is why I think it opens the door for a lot of people that a barbell shuts out entirely. Coming back from an injury, carrying weight that you haven't lost yet, That's an impossible schedule. So I do earn commission when you guys purchase. But that bar handles the training side. It doesn't touch the thing that this whole video, and then I told you that I can't give you that number because it depends on your labs, your history, how insulin resistant you actually are. And I told you that the refeed is where people wreck this. And there's no rule that I can hand you that fits everybody. And then I told you the goal is to eventually get to microdosing maintenance or low dosing in the future, or maybe nothing at all. But somebody has to actually walk you down that path. And that's this entire video. Every piece of it needs somebody looking at you specifically. No piece of equipment is going to fix that. So the free discovery call, text a number on your screen or use that link in the description and you'll talk with one of our patient educators. They'll get to know your history, what you've already tried and why it didn't hold and where you actually want to end up. You'll get a real feel for what working with our team looks like, and they'll walk you through the programs and the pricing so that you can picture what long-term success actually looks like for you. Day 1 decides month 18. So let's get day 1 right. And if you want the other half of this, everything that I tell you not to do in those first 90 days, I made that video already. Same starting line, opposite angle. There it is right there, guys. We'll see you later.